We want to welcome you back to another episode of Between Us and Y'all. I am Yasmin.
I'm Nafis.
And this is our podcast, Between Us and Y'all, a safe space for mothers and sons to have conversations. Today, we're going to have some guests again. But before we introduce them, as we normally do, we like to advertise for local businesses. Today, we will be advertising a local company by the name of Ruramai Cosmetics. This is a young sister in the community. Her name is Biges Kwayana, and she makes products for your face and your body. This is a face mask that I just purchased and used myself, and it's actually really, really, really good. See, my skin is nice and popping. I used the mask a few days ago, and so I'll put comments about that particular company in the link below so that you can support her just in time for whatever holiday you're getting ready for. And the guest that we have today, Asha Haygood, I'm going to introduce her formally in just a second, but I do want to inform our listeners that she is the niece of our beloved Dr. Askari, who has been the doctor for my son, who was here. He's 20 years old now. She was his doctor starting at 5 years old. And many of our listeners, you know, as you're listening, you'll know that she was their doctor, you know, and she is currently in a different position right now. And so I'm going to offer a link below so that you can offer her support if you have the ability to do so. But all of our listeners who have been patients of hers or have been to her office, we want to make sure that we offer her support. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our guests. Like I said, we have Asha Haygood today. If you could introduce yourself.
Hi. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Asha Haygood. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having us, Yasmin. I am a mother of four. There's two of those four, and married to Brother Ihsan Muhammad. I'm a librarian, a teacher, a trainer, and I am happy to be here. These are my sons. We have Abdurrahim and Hassan.
Assalamu alaikum. Abdurrahim, and she said, but yeah, I'm 17 years old, going on 18. I'm in high school right now, but I'm about to be finished probably in this year. And next year I'm doing online school, so I'm moving at my own pace. So like, yeah. And when I get out, most likely I'm going to trade school for electrician work, and then going to, you know, work with my uncle and stuff like that. Inshallah.
Huh. And next, who's that in the corner?
My name is Hassan Muhammad. I'm 13, and I do YouTube videos, and I do gaming stuff, and make videos with my cousins sometimes. And I'm in 7th grade, and I like to wrestle and play games with him and make jokes, make people laugh.
Well, you're definitely making us laugh. We appreciate it. And we appreciate that introduction. I've known Asha for over 10 years, you know, and seen her be a mother and a friend in the community, you know, and I appreciate this family. We have our different guests that are on, not particularly for a particular topic. It's just that we know as mothers, we usually can speak on any topic because we usually are faced with all types of topics. So today, our particular topic that we're talking about is on the topic of dropping out. And we're focusing specifically on emotional roller coasters in the community. And when we say dropping out, we're talking about how to manage emotional roller coasters that can come up when you decide to stop doing a thing that you've been doing for a long time. It could be habits, it could have been whatever the thing is. It's something that you decided to stop doing. Even with Hassan, if he decided to stop YouTubing, you know, maybe that would be a thing that would be something that he dropped out of. But we're talking about the emotions that come from that thing after you decide to stop doing it. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so as we start with any guest, we usually start with our first question, which is our family motto is to work hard, pray hard, love hard, and play hard. We try to incorporate that in everything we do, and we try to dedicate time to each particular area. Does your family have a family motto? And if so, what is it?
We had never really formally discussed it, but I had an idea what it was. So I asked my husband, and he said our family motto is, were you around when he said what it was?
No.
Oh. He said, be for Allah and Allah will be for you.
I mean,
I would have thought he would have said, study. I would study. What would you have thought that was?
Suit up after Salah.
What did he say?
You said what?
Well, after Salah, we take a family walk, and he always says suit up.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, suit up?
Just get
Like,
ready.
get ready.
Oh, get ready. Okay. All right. We just want to translate for our listeners this Muhammad language. We want to
Right.
understand. So that's powerful, though, that you guys as a family are praying together, you know, and walking together and experiencing outside time together. That's good. So we support that. We hope our listeners do too. All right. So we're going to jump into our first question. Nafis is going to start us off.
For the next question is, we have all made brave decisions to stop doing a thing that we used to do. This may or may not have caused us to experience what's known as an emotional roller coaster. Have you ever experienced an emotional roller coaster from dropping a habit? If so, what did that look like?
And there's no wrong answer. It doesn't have to be anything that's super technical. It could be any habit.
Okay, well, they said I should go first. I used to, I blogged daily. It was a commitment I made to myself to write, because a writer I respected said, okay, you want to be a writer, then write. Do you write every day? And I'm like, nope. So I blogged daily, and then I just kind of dropped the habit. I think it happened around the time that just things got way too busy. But I do often lament, you know, just dropping the habit, and because I was like getting my writing muscle much stronger when I was doing it every day, even when I didn't feel like it. So I just beat up on myself a little bit about it. Yeah.
All right. Any of the young men?
For me, it was like not dropping out, but withdrawing from public school to go and do online school. The reason why I made that decision was because, like, no shade or anything to the school that I went to, Creekside, but it's not exactly the best school. You know, it doesn't have, like, I was into a lot of stuff there,
No
like,
shade.
that I shouldn't have been into. And then when I realized that, like, during the middle of the year, it was kind of too late. So I went to my mom and dad, and I was like, I don't really think I want to go here no more, because I could just see myself failing everything, because I can't focus. So left there, and then I started doing online school, and it's kind of a big adjustment. Like, I was super, like, just down, like, drained the energy. Like, I was not waking up on time to do my work. I would sleep till like 2 o'clock, not do my work on time. But like now, like, I'm adjusting to it, very, like, doing better than I was at first.
Congratulations. Alhamdulillah. How about you, Hassan? Okay. Fine. All right. So we didn't get a chance to introduce Nafis formally. So if he can introduce himself, and then you can answer that question.
Okay, well, my name is Nafis Hassan. I'm 20. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
College student also.
Yeah. I'm a college student. I'm going to Alabama A&M, and I'm studying sociology. And I plan to be a filmmaker and a sociologist.
We're going to have to talk, Brother Nafis.
So you were going to answer that question?
Here for treatment, Brother Nafis.
In terms of my answer, I guess an emotional roller coaster was, I guess, like, stop trying to, I don't know. I'll let you go first, because I still got to think about it.
All right. So first, I want to commend Abdurrahim for making a decision to take control of your education. You know, for our listeners, it's not very common that young Black men have the ability and the permission to do so, you know, and the support to do something like that from their family. So I commend the Muhammad family for even supporting him in that decision, because I know some listeners will probably hear what he said and say, I decided to come home and go to online school. They'd be like, who did you decide to do that with? You know,
Right.
a lot of people just think that you shouldn't have the permission to make that decision on your own. And I commend you for recognizing that the school was not serving you, because oftentimes the schools are not serving our families, you know. So I commend you for taking your education in your own hands. And it sounds like you have a strong plan to go to trade school, which is something that will pay and something that will, you know, be something that you can provide for yourself. And we need an electrician too. So you got a client in our house if you know, once you finish school. So inshallah, when you finish, you don't have to worry about where your work will come from, you know. And then as far as my answer, a habit that I dropped out of was people pleasing. It's a thing that, you know, oftentimes people that know me think that I'm fun and laughing all the time, and I'm always just, you know, joking. And most people don't know that I'm actually pretty serious and always analyzing things, you know. And oftentimes my humor is a way to break the ice for conversations that people are not ready to have, you know. And so for a long time, I used to, you know, not get into the conversations that I wanted to have with people, you know, and just let the humor be a thing that was the only thing we talked about. And then I stopped, you know, I stopped worrying about what people thought and just kind of went straight into being who I wanted to be, you know. And so that's reflective of who I am today. But it was very much emotional to go through, you know, losing friends or losing people's opinions of me, you know, and losing support in a sense, because people were supporting an old me, you know. So that's my particular thing. You got anything? Because if you don't have to answer it.
We can move on to the next question.
All right, cool. All right, then I want to make sure that y'all are cool with. If you don't feel like you have something, don't feel like you have to have any pressure. This conversation is really honestly just to open up a conversation between moms and sons, you know, about this particular topic in a very organic way. And this, so our next question is, what strategies did you put in place to handle any emotional roller coasters you may have experienced? So when you started going through those things you were feeling, what did you put any strategies in place? And if so, what did they look like?
For me, and I tried to impart this to them as well, but of course it'll be, you know, it'll take time. But like when you kind of going into a tailspin about something, I always ask immediately, where's the fire? Like, where's the fire? Like, and that kind of brings me back down to earth, so I can really just take like a balanced assessment of what it is I'm fearful of. Gotta go back to my Baba Wakessa and Mama Afia. Yes. What is it? What is it I'm fearful of? And then just dissect that and, you know, just get down all the way down to the bottom of it. During this crisis, I instituted this other thing where, because I'm like, we're always in this fight or flight. So I was like, I need to replace that with faith or faith. I don't even give myself an option, like not fight or flight, because that'll have me just crazy all the time, but just going to that faith place quicker. And I'm trying to, you know, get them to do the work. And then they get there. What do you do to?
What do you do to work through your emotional roller coasters?
Yeah.
We all know I overthink a lot. So overthinking can lend into a lot of other stuff, a lot of other problems. So somewhere along the line, like I have moments where I realize that I'm overthinking too much, because sometimes I can know that I'm overthinking too much, but it'll still just go over my head, and I just continue to just fall into that pit of overthinking. But at times I could stop myself and then just like remember, like just pray, leave it in Allah's hands sometimes. Like I try to control too much. Like I try to do way too much, and a little bit of stuff is out of my hands. Like can't do anything about it. So I just started to leave stuff in Allah's hands, do what I can do. And
do what you can. Now your camel.
Yeah, that's it.
And have faith.
All right, I wanna ask that question in a different way for Hassan, because I do want to hear from you, young man. when you're YouTubing and making your videos and something happens that causes you frustration, you know, how do you handle that?
If somebody like tries to come for my videos, then I'm gonna get on them in the comment section.
What?
And then I'm gonna go to the channel and then I'm gonna comment on their videos.
So what I hear is retaliation.
Sometimes you gotta retaliate. Sometimes you have to.
And
As long as you got a plan and as long as you're safe, that's what matters.
Right.
All right, cool. All right, so next question.
What did you want to answer?
Did I answer it? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't answer the question. So strategies that I put in place to handle my emotional roller coasters. Like one thing is very similar to what you said, Asha, is paying attention to what the fire is. Like, what is the issue? I usually, instead of saying fire, I ask myself, what's the violation? Like, how are you being violated? You know, and I ask myself that question because honestly, sometimes there is no violation or there is no fire. It's just residue that's left over and you haven't really processed it, you know. And so when I ask myself that question, I can really identify that, you ask me, you still tripping on something that's, you know, something you're still healing through, and give yourself time to get through it, but you got to get through this. You know, this can't be a thing that keeps eating away at you. You know, I might have mentioned this before on another episode, but one of my ways to get into emotional roller coasters is making bread. You know, a lot of people know me to be a baker, and making bread, if you've never made it, is very hard. It's a workout on your hands because you got to knead the dough and you got to push it, and you can even punch it sometimes, you know, but the reality is you got to put a lot of work in with your hands, and it's a lot of, you know, physical work that it ends up being a thing that's kind of like a workout, you know. So I do that. And then also I'm a writer. So a lot of times I might write, you know, to one of my favorite songs, you know. This morning, actually, I was writing, thinking about this brother, Ahmed, I don't know if that's how you say it, but Ahmed Arbery. Right. I've given his name totally a Muslim, you know, pronunciation.
I'm pronouncing it.
That's his name for me, you know, but I was thinking of him, you know, last night, and his mother, you know, thinking of her in her first Mother's Day without her son, you know, that's coming up, you know, on Sunday. And I started thinking of this song by Frank Ocean, Godspeed. It's a song that he's, you know, talking about grieving and letting go. And I just started thinking of her, and I got so sad, and I just played it over and over and began to write, you know, and just writing for mothers who have lost their sons and people that are grieving, you know what I mean? And so oftentimes for me, I pair music with writing, and that's how I get through some of my emotional roller coasters. All right.
The answer to her question is kind of similar to what she was saying. Like, my first strategy that I do is I kind of take a step back and ask myself, why is the reason why I'm mad about the situation? And if I can't really answer that question to myself, then I shouldn't be mad about it. And because, you know, like you said, if you're bent over a situation and you're not really trying to understand anything, and you're sitting there thinking, and you're like, well, what's the real reason that's getting me mad? And you can't really come to the decision, then why should you be mad over it?
Right.
So also, like I like to take a step back and just take a day for myself and just really like to feel through all the emotions. And because, you know, we're still individuals and we are human, and we all do feel, and we can feel all the emotions that we can. So definitely trying to take a step back for myself and, you know, grieve or be happy or be angry, and
give yourself time.
Give myself time. And definitely, like how she said, of expressing that emotions through different ways, like maybe art, or making tie-dye, or making writing. So definitely getting that emotion out there and expressing it in a different way to show my concern about a different problem or situation that's happening. And definitely just listen to my favorite music to make me understand the situation more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
The next question is, after getting through those emotional roller coasters, do you have any habits where you are happy to let go of?
I'd say the habit of panicking first. that was what popped up for me. So the habit of like just immediately going into panic mode, I was very happy to shed that habit, and I just curve that whole emotion. And that doesn't mean that I don't give it the due seriousness or, figure out what practically needs to be done or whatever, but I'm not going to be in this panic state because it does not serve. It don't love me, my blood pressure, nothing. So that's a habit that I've broken. Some days I can arrive at that spot, at that space sooner than others. Like on a good day, I can get there like this, but sometimes it takes a while.
Okay. How about y'all, young man?
Overeating. Cause that's for
overeating.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Probably 5 years ago, 5 or 4 years ago, probably less than, I don't know. I was kind of like big on a big area, and I mean, to me, what people said didn't really get to me. It was just kind of like myself, like looking at myself, and then that would affect me. And then I knew the whole reason why I was like it because, like, my family genes doesn't just make us like big or anything like that. So I knew the only reason I was like that because of a habit that I created for some other stuff, based on some other stuff. I started overeating, and like over time, like I started getting into sports, like going to the gym more, watching what I ate, and then I just started getting more slimmer. So yeah, overeating was a big thing.
You became way more mindful about your health.
That's what's up. Congratulations. All right, Hassan, how about when these people are coming at you in the comments and you decide to retaliate? You type in all caps, you going off on somebody. Has there been a time where you had to catch yourself and say, this is going too far, I got to stop this, I got to be the better person, or did you just continue with the
like somebody like in the comment, they said my video was trash, so I was going to say something, and then I knew like it's not trash, and that was just one person, and it's not about their opinion if they're going to say something bad, so I just left it at that.
You felt good about
that. Those are some strong positions that you guys have taken. I mean, honestly, those are really good, because the thing is sometimes people come for you, and the reality is they do it because they are envious of what you're doing, envious of the fact that you are moving forward, with whatever it is that you're doing. So I'm happy that you guys have decided to be the better person, take care of yourself and move forward. One of my things that I stopped doing that I'm proud of is assuming the worst all the time. Oftentimes, when I got into the habit of telling myself the worst thing first so that I could grieve faster. Like if I knew what the worst thing was, it would allow me to get through a thing faster, So I would always assume there was something really bad happening or always a bad thing in place, when in actuality there was nothing bad about it. It was just nothing happening. But I was just like, you know what? These people are probably, they don't like me, or they didn't call me back because of these reasons, when in actuality the person's phone was broke or something. I had just made all these things in my mind, that I got to the habit of associating with that particular event, when in actuality that wasn't the case. And Abdurrahim, actually, we share something that I go through overeating every now and then still, you know what I mean? And so I actually went through that, and it's a thing I've gone through over the years with dealing with weight loss and weight gain, and how people treat you when you're skinny and how they treat you when you're heavy. I've noticed the difference. But one thing I let go of is associating things that I like to eat with sadness. And so sometimes when you're eating and you're saying, I want this ice cream because I'm sad, I started to realize I was eating way more ice cream during those times, as opposed to I might actually really like pistachio ice cream, and I could just eat a little bit. It doesn't have to be 5 cups, of it at one time. So I started to separate those things and make sure I had held on to some of the things that I liked to, without shedding all those things.
Yeah.
Anything?
My answer to that question is not being so hard on myself to the point where I'm telling myself affirmations that are negative. Because especially being in going through high school and going into college, going through classes and trying to pass the classes, and also just transitioning and becoming a young adult, not believing in, just trying to believe in myself more and understand that I'm still growing as a person and still growing as a young adult, and still the decisions that I make are still gonna impact me as I'm growing up, but it's not gonna shape me who I am. So to understand that I'm still blossoming out of my cocoon, and not to be so hard on myself.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
All right, so our next question is, do you ever encourage one another to experience an emotional roller coaster as long as you want, or do you put a time limit on the process? Like, do you say this is how long this needs to last and you need to stop, or how do you approach that?
I do, like, I don't think I formally put a time limit on it, but I do try to encourage just not being stagnant in the emotional roller coaster. Like if I see one of them staying, and I think it's clear who might stay in a space longer between the two of them. But if I see them staying in a place, I'm like, you need to get to the bottom of this, like you talked about, unpacking them, honoring the emotion, questioning it, like Brother Nafi said, like what is this even about? What am I mad about? Holding yourself accountable for those feelings, and and then moving through it. So we can't stay there forever.
Right. How about you?
Huh?
How about Dr. Rahim or Hassan? Do you want to answer that?
No.
To be honest, sometimes I'll be soaking in self-pity, like, and I know I will, but I just do it because it gives me an excuse to be lazy sometimes. So I'll just do it. I'll do it, and then after a while, then I'll realize, all right, bro, now you're tripping because you can't just stay like this the whole time. Like, you can't stay like this all your life, or you can't just let small situations or small, like, I'll put this. I'll just say small pebbles in your path or rocks in your path stop you from moving. Like, you just gotta,
or at least know how to move around them.
Yeah, eventually just move around them, keep going.
Okay.
I would say yes and no. Sometimes I do put a time limit on it, but sometimes I don't. And the reason why is to understand, in case of that situation happens again in a different way, that I'm able to understand it and able to, in a situation that comes again quickly, so I'm prepared for it. And not to say that I like, being in a negative situation or just like to see people mad or something like that, but just to really understand how that person deals with things and how I'm able to present a different solution in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all have similar answers. For me, sometimes I try to ask myself, how much time do you need for this? And be realistic with myself. How much time is this going to really take me, to grieve? Because sometimes you really don't know how long a grief process is going to take, and what my fear is sometimes is that the grief will overcome me in inappropriate times, because I haven't really addressed it, and so you find yourself in meetings at work or hanging out with your girls or something, and suddenly you bust out crying and nobody knows what's going on. Now nobody wants to hang out with you anymore because you're always crying and strange, so I try to ask myself, have I really dealt with this? So I might give myself, a day, or say, you know what, I need at least 2 days. And within those 2 days, I'm actively doing something that's intentionally trying to address this problem. I'm not ignoring it, because if not, I'm the type of person where it'll pop up randomly and everybody start thinking I'm a strange person. I don't want those kind of relationships. So we're going to go into our last 2 questions, and we're going to answer these a little bit differently. These particular questions, we want to give advice to our listeners, and we'll ask the questions, and Nafis and I will offer an answer first. But for you guys, if you can offer some advice to our listeners as far as, this question is concerned, that would be helpful. So the next question.
The next question is, as we have experienced leaving behind a habit or a commitment, it sometimes can cause a toll on our communal relationships. Let's discuss a time when you made a change that received backlash from a community you are a part of.
All right, so I'll start. One time I can say is getting divorced. You know, I got divorced and nobody understood. You know, why were you getting divorced after being single for so long? You know, I think I was single for maybe like 6 years, maybe 7 years, and people don't understand relationships. You know, they don't understand the interior of it, and so I got a lot of backlash for what everybody decided was a terrible decision, to leave this wonderful man, you know, who just all he wants to do is just love you and black love and all this stuff, you know, and people create these narratives of your relationships and they don't know what your narrative has been, you know, and when I decided to do that, it was hard, you know, it was very challenging. It was a lot of emotional roller coasters, a lot of loss of friendships and shedding of, you know, relationships and stuff like that. But I have no regrets, you know, for doing that because it was what I needed, you know, and it was an issue, you know, so that would be my example. How about you?
Yeah.
Any particular thing that you decided to stop doing that you felt like the community treated you differently when you stopped doing it?
No, I don't. No, actually, kind of in the same lines. Was probably I was in a relationship maybe a couple years ago, and when I had got out of it to better myself, the community kind of looked at me in a different way and responded to me in a different way, and it kind of made me have to realize that, you know, people do see you in a different light when you are in a relationship and when you are not, you know. So having to understand that, you know, I have to be happy for myself with all the decisions that I make, and I'm not, even though I do want to please my community and present myself in the best way, I also have to present myself the best way to myself.
Mm. All right, so if you all were to offer advice to our listeners as far as what is some good advice on how to deal with letting something go that ends up impacting you with backlash from the communities that you're a part of?
I would advise a person to just really have some intense self-reflection, because if they feel good and solid about their decision, then, you know, regardless of what the chatter from the community or whatever is, then you should be good. And I say self-reflection, but ultimately I would say to be making strong dua, istikara, asking Allah for that guidance, because kind of rudderless, you know, without tapping into that source. So that's definitely what I would advise. And then just let the community talk. You know?
Anyway.
They good at that, yeah.
Raheem, how about you? Do you have any advice for our young men listening that might be dealing with backlash from the community when they stop doing something that the community didn't like?
Yes, a lot. Because I've been in this situation before where I'm not saying do what I did, because in my situation, I just removed myself from the community as a whole. And when I remove myself, like when I fully remove myself from something, and I just become completely nonchalant to it, like in every aspect, like I don't look back. I don't give anybody from that setting the time of day for anything anymore, because it was a lot of stuff that went on there and didn't have to go on, and it was a lot of, you know, I feel like it was already a lot of undercover like energy towards me the moment I got there, and I don't know why, but I don't know, it happens like that sometimes. But for me, it'll be distance yourself, focus on yourself, and like once you focus on yourself, you don't even have to leave the community like I did. But if you focus on yourself and like spend time with yourself, like stuff that they might say in the community or the community might like make you feel like it won't really affect you like that because you've done enough self-reflection to know that most of the stuff that they're saying isn't true. Or if it is true, then you're working towards making it not true, like changing it.
Mm-hmm. Trust that Allah got you.
All right, Hassan. How about if somebody comes and they want to say, you know, I'm a YouTuber and I make these videos, nobody likes them, they're always talking trash about me, and Imam finds out that you making some videos and he got something to say about the videos. What do you say to the listeners that decide they want to keep doing their videos, regardless of what anybody says?
Keep going, and that they're just hating that they got more club than you.
I like that, sir. All right, cool. Thank you for answering. All right, we're going to end with one question. We're going to answer it in the same way. Before we do, though, did you have anything? You answered it already? Okay. So the last question is, has there ever been a thing you let go of that your community influenced you to shed? And if so, what was the outcome of that decision? You want to answer first? Something that the community kind of gave you the push that you should probably let go of that thing, stop doing that. And if so, how did that turn out for you?
To really figure out what I want to do for college, because at the time it was really, really hard for me to make a decision on what I wanted to study, especially going through, well, I'm a sophomore, about to be a junior now, and trying to really figure out what I really want to do. And so being in the community and having those people around that actually do the stuff that I want to do, like being a filmmaker or being a sociologist, and having those conversations with them and really persuading me to do what I want to do is really helped me, and to, you know, not let other people's decisions, you know, affect you, and even my mom's decisions. Because even though my mom is really a part of the decisions that I make, I also have to make decisions for myself and what I want to present back to the table. So definitely, that's what the community has helped me to shed. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, mine would be, it's interesting because I volunteer a lot, and I was volunteering to the point that it was affecting my health. And so I kind of started paying attention to the community not paying attention to that. And the fact that they weren't paying attention is what helped me decide that I wasn't going to do that anymore. I was going to stop, and make more time for myself and my family, and the things that I wanted to do that didn't have anything to do with volunteering or activism or whatever it was. I was going to stop and just enjoy some things that didn't require anything that looked like that. Another thing was, when I was deciding on a high school for you, I just remember a lot of backlash on choosing. My son went to a Waldorf school. And so I got a whole lot of backlash with him coming from a school like Quilombo, African-centered school, to go to this, what people said was like a white school. You let these white people teach your kid, and they don't brainwash him and, shed all of the foundation that he's received. And that actually influenced me to continue, on my path to make sure that he would be put in an environment where he could hold his own, because I wanted him to know that whatever you've received in any African community or Muslim community should be who you are wherever you go. It shouldn't just be something you can only do when you're around the Africans, it should be who you are, period. So the community helped me to make that decision. What type of advice would you all offer for our listeners who might be dealing with something very similar, where the community might be influencing you to make a decision that's helpful or harmful to you? What would you say to our listeners as far as going forward with their decisions?
I would say, take a practical approach to it. Don't just dismiss, whatever the community concerns are out of pocket initially, just because, it's not coming from you. But, maybe just make a list, pros and cons, and, how you really feel about it will emerge through that whole process. Because there is wisdom, in our communities. But ultimately, the decision will be with you. So I would say, just kind of do that editing process and yeah.
Okay. Ibrahim?
I would agree with her.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. It looked like you were still thinking. I wasn't sure. We want to thank you both for being here. What happened to Hassan?
Oh, sorry. He had a class deadline.
Okay, that's fine. But we want to thank you all for being here. This has been a good conversation and an example to show other mothers and sons how to have a conversation about this topic. If you're struggling with ways to bring up the topic of emotional roller coasters with your son, or different ways to talk about how to deal with all of that if the community has caused you to be stressed. The purpose of this conversation was for mothers to learn how to approach the topic, or for sons to be able to open up the conversation with their parents. We appreciate you both for being here and shedding light on all of these particular questions that we asked of you. Thank you for offering your insight. This has been another episode of Between Us and Y'all. We hope that our listeners have benefited from everything that we've shared today. We want to encourage our listeners to always work hard, pray hard, love hard, and play hard. And
thank you guys for being here.
All right, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Good day.
You too.